Hello, welcome back. It is Wednesday, September 2nd, 1 p.m. Pacific Time. I am your host, Anthony Mueller, the wine reviewer for Washington State and South Africa for Robert Parker Wine Advocate. I'm here today at the Napa offices of the Wine Advocate. It is getting a little better outside. It's still a little hazy. Challenging times. Let's see if we can get our winemaker for the day. I have a very special and exciting guest, Jason Gorski of Delille Cellars. Hey, Jason.
Hello.
How you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Fantastic. Yourself?
Sticky.
Sticky. I'm sorry. That sounds like a problem.
No, we've started harvest up here, so we're have some Sauvignon Blanc in the house today. So I try to clean myself up a little bit and hop on with you.
Well then, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you're very, very busy. So Jason Gorski, can you please give any viewers who aren't familiar with yourself or Delille Cellars a quick bio and background about yourself and the brand?
Sure. Delille is founded in '92. Founded on the principle of Bordeaux blend. So at the time, no one was really doing mostly single vineyard, single varietal. And so our bread and butter is blends. Started with Bordeaux varietals, moved into Rhone varietals in late 1990s. Personally, I've been here in Washington State since '02. '04 I moved out here, so this will be my 17th Washington harvest, and been at Delille this is my 10th vintage. So
nice.
Getting there. Yeah.
Cool. And I understand you were at a winery in Jersey for a few years.
Yeah, I always say I'm fond of saying it doesn't really count. When I first moved west, everyone was like, "Yeah, that's nice," but I cut my teeth in viticulture, and obviously really really difficult viticulture at that. So with cold weather varietals and disease pressure and birds and all of that. Yeah. I spent some time on the tractor, did all the vineyard work myself, so it was a blast.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's one thing that I always find interesting whenever I travel across the U.S. I always try and check out just one wine region in a state. I'm from Arizona, and there are a few AVAs in the state of Arizona making some quite delicious wine. People think, New Mexico, do they make wine? Sparkling wine is actually kind of their thing, like Gruet and other things. And there's always something to be discovered.
For sure. I think it's what makes the wine and the wine community so exciting. It's like you never know everything, you can never go everywhere, and it's always changing, it's always evolving, and it's always great people too. I think that makes it that much more rewarding.
For sure, I concur. And one thing that I've learned in my wine career is no matter how great of a wine professional you are, no one knows what next year's vintage is going to be like. They have to live through it. So speaking of continually seeing and evolving what's happening, can you take us through what you're doing currently in terms of the 2020 vintage being all sticky?
Yeah, it's still kind of waiting. I always say the vintage kind of has to speak to you. These early season, I don't always have my thumb on it right away. For the past couple of vintages, we've gotten mid-August heat that kind of maybe accelerated whites a little bit. And we're just starting to get that kind of 7 to 10 days of warmer than comfortable out in the vineyard. So which that for us has basically meant so far is that whites have come in at lower potential alcohol, great flavors. Early reds are great. What this heat is going to do is going to kind of be the X factor for the vintage, I believe. So if too much Cabernet has sugar get out in front of flavors, we'll have to adjust. But I'm hoping most things will get through it and be at moderate sugar levels, and then we'll get our long hang time that Washington is known for. We're just starting to see kind of bigger diurnal swings. We'll start to typically Labor Day would have happened already by relatively soon, but it's so late this year. We start to see 40-degree swings, and the heat of the day is very late in the day. So that really, really helps with flavor development and acid retention. So we're kind of waiting for that sea change. And hoping, obviously, what's normal anymore. We were just talking about this today. When that heat will ever cool down. Well, last year we had the coolest September since the 70s. I wasn't even born the last time it happened. So, you make your adjustments every year and help the vineyard express itself. That's kind of how we describe our philosophy here.
That's cool. It's always great to let Mother Nature take its course, and if need to, try and course correct every now and then. There are limited things that we humans can do against Mother Nature. So yeah. So you've got white grapes coming in here soon, then, or you have?
Yeah, actually. So today I helped load the final press loads for the day, and then ran upstairs to get cleaned up. We have excuse me, Sauvignon Blanc in the house today. Last pick for our Bordeaux Blanc program is today. And then we've got some Roussanne for the Rhone side Thursday, which will actually finish up Washington State whites for us. Pretty early in the season for all of it. Normally, Semillon can get into the teens of September, maybe later. But yeah, it's been great flavor and acid so far. So
it's great, awesome. Speaking of Sauvignon Blanc coming in, we've got some wine to try. We're start with the 2019 Chelour Blanc.
Yeah.
It's 69% Sauv Blanc and 31% Semillon.
Yep, and I got to turn it around to look. So the fun thing about this this is it's a little bit different every year because we've been working with the same vineyard partners this is the 25th vintage. So it has changed over time, but where we source and we make more of it now. So we had to we've made our adjustments, but yeah, I've done 70-30, 70 like 80-20. I mean, it can kind of be all over the place. It's just a more matter of making this blend work. So and it's Sauvignon Blanc in the lead. So this is Bordeaux Blanc in style. So we're barrel fermented on 90% of it. The 10% stainless tops the barrels. So we don't fill them all the way up to ferment. You just get a giant lake of fermenting juice on the floor. So then, right about as the barrels are going pretty dry, we'll top with generally tank fermented Semillon. And then batonnage once we're through, so full ML, 60% new oak. So this is kind of 25 years of kind of the program. We're always fine tuning, but this is definitely something that had a high degree of success before I ever got here. So
it's got a beautiful texture to it, lively acidity. It's got a little bit of that oak structure as well that kind of comes through, lifts everything aromatically across the mid palate. You can get the sense of the batonnage across the mid palate. That weight. There's like this kind of fluffy, kind of firm minerality that kind of rises up and pushes the structure and elevates the entire expression across the mid palate. So very beautiful, delicious wine. I was actually talking to one of our media people in Singapore in preparation for our chat, and they're like, "Oh my God, we love the Chelour Blanc. It's so tasty." Yeah. It's like you have to send some to us. It's like, well, right now things are kind of down for a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, it's one of our larger production wines. So the wines I picked today, knowing how diverse the audience can be, it's like these are the two wines that are most likely to be outside of our home state. So best chance to find Blanc and D2. But I love making this wine. It's I think most people collect red wine and drink white wine, and it's always I like to make wine to be drank. It's really fun tasting it. I mean, 10 minutes ago, I was in the cellar and you can smell all the stuff. You can smell it, 20 fermenting. And I stick my nose in the glass. It's way different expression of this wine than I remember. So be honest, I normally don't put wine in my mouth, especially young wine this time of the year. Like it's so sick of smelling fermentation esters and everything,
I hear you.
But that's good. It's so much fun to work with, and my the whole winemaking team's excited about it too. I think if across the board, all of us would say that Chelour Blanc is our favorite wine to make.
Yeah, for sure. It's a delicious wine and very food friendly, which I don't know if I necessarily agree with. Drinking white wine and aging the red wine. I believe all wines are meant to be drank.
Sure.
But I especially love when I find a wine that is incredibly food friendly, where I think a lot of times in America we just pull the white wine out of the fridge and that's our appetizer. There's nothing going with it. Like that's
right.
The wines that give me the most pleasure are wines that are food friendly, that have brilliant acid, and then they are compounded by food, and the synergistic effects of the wine and the food coming together create something ultimately more important than both together. And they're really, 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 it's a really incredible experience. And this is exactly what you have going with the Chelour.
Thanks, yeah. I mean, I say in general, our style, we look for balance in all the wines that we make, but I love acid. I mean, I'm exactly what you said. That's what makes it food friendly. For me, I prefer to make wine that I like to drink. And I think every winemaker, I think every winemaker would say that for sure. But yeah, I mean, I think it's sometimes funny to me that a lot of consumers will, if you're going to buy a case, are only buying 2 or 4 bottles of white, but those white bottles are the ones that are going to be drank so much faster. Because you don't hesitate, and it's like just it's as simple. You don't have to overthink it sometimes. Yeah. But white wine, I mean, I'm probably some of the best red wines I've ever had are probably the best wines I've ever had. But some of the the whites just can be mind blowing. So don't discount them. So
awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about the Chelour Blanc before we check out some red wine?
I think you nailed it. I mean, like I said, we love making this, so I'm excited to see what we've got in store right now. Yeah, so a fun program. I mean, most people, I don't know. I've described how we make that wine and the amount of love that goes into the Chelour Blanc, and had fellow winemakers just kind of get that look on their face, like, oh my God, I'll never do that. That's too much effort at the scale that we do it. But everything we do here is as a labor of love, I guess. So we're not really huge fans of practicality.
Awesome.
Which is actually a good segue into our next wine. 2017 D2, not practical. So in 92, when we were founded, we made our, the top of the pyramid. The Chelour Estate was the best wine that we could find in the cellar, and everything else was declassified into D2. And we sort of flipped that, probably 2012, 2014 vintage. Rather than discuss D2 as a doozy, we're always describing this now as, I call it, a wine on purpose. We started it with just if a vineyard block didn't make Chelour, then we would remove it from the program, plug something else in, and it was always the seconds for D2. Always Merlot driven, just because in the early days the best wine was Cab. But nowadays, starting in 12, 13, I started sourcing fruit specifically to grow this wine, and to grow it in cases, but also to maintain the quality, and the style specifically. But in the 10 years since inception to that point and continuing today, we just can't say no to really good grapes. So, at a moderate sized blend like this for D2, there's still 50 different blocks in it or something like that. It's an absolute, the blending sheet is just, falls off the table. But it allows us to, there's almost 200 tons of Merlot in this, and I have a block that gives us 3 tons. So we'll go and farm that separately, scout it separately, pick it separately, ferment it separately, age it separately, and it only has ever gone into D2. But we just love that wine, love that block, and throw practicality out the window when you find good grapes. We never let them go.
Sure.
And that pretty much also describes Delille to a T. Like, it's just I think we've always been very winemaker driven. And I've been blessed to always have a management team that is behind that concept of just like make the best wine that you can. Let's and start there, rather than what does the market want, what does our customers want. It's like, this is what we think Washington can be through our specific lens, and march with it. So sorry, please discuss you can describe the wines.
No, just listening to you. I was actually just thinking as I'm drinking this. I've been drinking D2 for, more than a decade now. Every restaurant program that I ran, it would be on the list. It's one of those staples for me that checks all those boxes for what Washington wine can do. You put all your race cars in line, and some people say, "Oh, what is that one going to do?" And you can always bet on this wine. It's a solid wine. That I think is it checks all these boxes. It has all these beautiful flavors, has depth of flavor, and when you taste it, you get this sense of this kind of soft, kind of powdery minerality across the mid palate. That's soft and almost silky, but in youth it's still slightly tight. But it's going to age beautifully. The Merlot really jumps out on the nose first for me. That kind of dusty plum skin that first kind of comes out, blackberry, beautiful beautiful oak essence. It just makes me happy. This is a solid wine.
You couldn't give any winemaker's ever made more of a compliment than saying that makes you happy. So, 17 was relatively, I mean, as vintages go, it's not horribly difficult, but certainly had its challenges. So I think, especially for the size of this cuvee, I love hearing nice things about it because I know how much work that we put into it. So we were smoke affected in 2017, which is not to say that the wines themselves have smoke taint, but the BC
high level smoke in the atmosphere.
Exactly.
Low to the ground, pressed on the vineyard, on the grapes.
Yep.
That would cause significant damage.
Yeah, so it just totally changed kind of how the vine was reacting to normal sunlight. So it absolutely changed the face of that vintage a little bit. So and honestly, just anytime anything's a little bit different, we're all like, okay, well, it's time to learn, right? So at the end of the day, as long as we've learned our lessons and made good wine, you get to do it again next year. It'll be totally different. So that's right. Fun.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Let's just hope that we don't have a repeat of 2020 in 2021. Yeah. Just in general.
It's just in general. I think that yes, absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually felt like I know I probably spoke too soon because then the Napa fires came, but it looked in general like we were being blessed a little bit by nature with everything else going on with humanity right now. Yeah. That at least from the winemaking perspective, we weren't going to have to duke it out with Mother Nature, and then we get the fire. So heart going out to everyone trying to deal with those, but right now, but. Just one more thing in a challenging year. So one thing I remind myself about this pandemic and all the uncertainty in the world is it's more hard work. It's more taking care of one another. That's never changed. So so no matter what Mother Nature throws at us, we'll do what we do.
Yeah, and I also think that in a strange year like this, regardless of what you're doing in life, I think it just makes. It gives everyone tremendous pause, but also makes everyone aware of those moments, and you give a bit more attention to detail to what you're doing, and with that comes more meaning. So hopefully 2020 is rewarding for you all up north.
I remind myself that the work I do now will add normalcy to people's lives in 3 years, right? So it's not I don't know. There's maybe higher callings, but at least I'm doing something.
Awesome. So let's talk about different varietals. So you work with a fair amount of different varietals, quite a few number of different bottlings in the range within the brand. Different grapes, different styles. Which varietals ultimately bring you the most pleasure to make and why?
Well, we already touched on Sauvignon Blanc. I love making Chaleur Blanc. Up here in Washington, Semillon does incredibly well as well. So I love that blend. So we've touched on that a little bit. Washington is so diverse. I mean, we grow everything from Riesling to Cabernet and everything in between well. So it's kind of hard to nail it down. I don't even know how many varietals we do anymore. Like I've lost count. Like we just keep adding, things. Syrah ever entered the house because other people were doing great things with it, and it was planted. And the team at Cedar Cheval said they were going to put it in the ground, and we're like, well, yeah, giddy up, we'll get on board with that. So I don't know. I like everything that we do. I mean, Merlot is our bread and butter, but at this point, we're probably making just as many tons of Cabernet. So, I like brand building. I like building a business that keeps everyone employed. So it's sometimes difficult to see the bigger picture when you're making so much D2. But I mean, we make Oregon Chardonnay, we make Oregon Pinot Noir. I might bring in some Riesling this year. I mean, again, the beauty of this place is that I have everybody on board with letting winemakers go have fun. So my team can come to me with a wild scheme, and if we think that it fits with the brand and that our wine club members want to try something new, we just get all over it. So personal favorites, I like white wine. I just think it takes a subtler touch. It's you have less time with it. I think there's less places to hide. I think that's really what it comes down to. I think with Cabernet, get pretty good Cabernet, get a pretty good pick on it, pretty good fermentation, and put it in a beautiful barrel. We can cover up some of the winemaking. It can
be robed by other things.
Absolutely, and not that Chaleur Blanc style, that Bordeaux Blanc style, you can't hide a little bit, but it's also an oxidative method for a white varietal. So you can push it too far as well. So yeah, I like making cab. It pays the bills and makes delicious wine. So you cannot go wrong.
Yeah, for sure. So you work with the way that I was on your website the other day. And you have a really cool timeline in a brochure in one of the click down links, and you've basically set up the labels with different kind of ranges, and then you also have Bordeaux styled and Rhone styled kind of clusters. Since you prefer to make white wine over red, it just brings you more pleasure. Do you have more pleasure making the white Bordeaux blends or the white Rhone blend and rosé from the other side?
I mean, it's hard to beat Chaleur Blanc. My wife's favorite. It's all everyone on our team is just and a lot of that is because it's such a departure from red wine. I think that's almost a more interesting, topic because 80-something% of our total production is red grapes. So I think whenever we have those outliers, it's definitely fun to make rosé. It's fun to make our Roussanne. Chaleur Blanc tends to be the wine that gets a lot more hours, all that batonnage and topping and blending this a ton of barrels together to get something harmonious. I think it's something symbolic about that, bringing all those parts together. But yeah, in general, I would, the Chaleur Blanc is hard to top for pure pleasure. But I mean, for me, blending, it's like on the red side when D2 is the last blend that I'll make. And, there's that moment where you put it all together and you're like, oh God, I hope this works, because if it doesn't, I got to go back and start again and make, 16 other red blends because they all work together, all dynamic. Our crossover is with a wine called Doyen, which has both Syrah and Cabernet in it. So that's the point when the Bordeaux Reds and the Rhone Reds actually kind of cross over and the programs talk to one another. That's a relatively large cuvee. So if I like what the Doyen tastes like, but D2 isn't good enough, I got to go back and redo the whole darn thing. So, but that, when you get to like, 2017 D2 on the blending table and those first couple of iterations, just going, oh, yeah, we checked every box in 2017. It's the only way we get to what we got in the bottle there. So
yeah, it shows up in the glass. So well done.
Yeah,
awesome. So Delille has a really great history. Some icons at its heart from the beginning. Working with Chris Upchurch, what valuable lessons have you learned working with him and just being around him and from him?
The stuff that really sticks is, a lot of people think that the mentor-protege kind of relationship in the cellar is, oh, you see that grape over there? If you do X, Y, Z with it, that makes great wine. Chris is always a brand builder. It's all about the culture in the cellar. I talk about the foundation here at Delille. Like that's the starting point of the story for Delille. And it really comes from that sense of collaboration that there is in the cellar, in the sense of adventure, discovery. And Chris created a culture where everybody was expected to come to work and contribute. It's not come to work and just, punch a clock or follow a work order. We refuse to write work orders. We put it out there in the hive mind. We work all together, even in the middle of harvest when we've got 10, 11 people trying to get everybody on the same page. It's noisy, it's busy, it's chaotic. It's still talking to one another and collaborating. And it's that, for me, that's really what the best lessons that I learned from Chris were from that strategic standpoint of building a brand, of putting good people around you, demanding excellence from everyone around you, expecting that everyone around you will call you out when you're not pulling your weight. That the culture of excellence, the culture that we're going to work really hard to make this bottle of wine and humbly offer it to people that come and visit us and know about us. That's brand building is everything. And startup, I think every winemaker starts out their career just trying to make a great bottle of wine, and then eventually you realize like there's plenty of people that have done that and not succeeded. And there's plenty of people that have made marginal, nice way to put it, and had great success. And really just that, building something bigger than yourself. I think that was part of the transition and the grace that Chris had as he relinquished responsibilities and allowed me to do it. That's something that will always stick with me. And I hope that when it's my turn to transition, I'll do it as well as he did.
Awesome. Yeah, I had a chance to sit down with the three of you within a day or two period. Sat down with you and Jay Soloff and Jason through the entire lineup last year, and then I think the next day I ended up at Chris Suttrich's spot just down the hill from you, and yeah, you can tell that he's got that extra little thing. It's like you think of like a winemaker, and he just, to me, just doesn't fit into like what a winemaker is. He's more thoughtful and a little off the cuff, and I really enjoy his attitude and his philosophies about things.
Yeah. Could always count on him to be himself, and I think he loves a little bit of anarchy. Yeah. Like, he doesn't like talking points. He's gonna make sure that you get his personality, and I think that's always something that you take with you as well. It's like at the end of the day, if you're not proud of what you've done, if you can't be yourself, like what's the fun?
Exactly. I completely understand that.
I've seen you in a sport coat, so I understand every once in a while.
Yeah, well, you got to put on the coat every once in a while. So are there any plans to add, additional bottlings to the range or add into the range at all?
Yeah, so yes. Since I've gotten here, we've added 10 mainline SKUs. And a lot of that's driven by just the marketplace. When we first started, we were smaller and could sell the wine that we made direct and quickly. And I'm actually sitting in our new tasting room. We completed it just under a year ago. Yeah, in Woodinville, and we've yet to really, unfortunately, be able to open the doors fully and invite people in. So I'm kind of looking forward to kind of relaunching this when we get a chance. Mm-hmm. But in the process, we've created a wonderful wine club, and I love making wine for those loyal customers. It's the same people over and over, and they have opinions and they love drinking the wine, and I love it especially because if we want to go make that Riesling or whatever, I'm teasing everybody. I still don't know whether we're going to do this year, but if we want to go out and do that, I know that I've got an audience that is excited to support, and that's so liberating when it comes to it. There's so many ideas that I've had over the course of the past decade that just were impractical to you because you don't have the outlet, right? You want to be creative, but it's only 50 cases. Okay, well, the wine club also offers that opportunity for us to go and just find stuff that we want to play with and learn more about. I think prior to all this, I still want to go acquire vineyards. We still only control about 10 to 12% of our grapes. Mm-hmm. And we've worked with, part of the challenge there is that we've worked with the same amazing growers for 25 years. So almost 30 years now. And they're not going anywhere. But, we'll see what the future holds. I said, with the cat of the bag, we've been making it's basically Guillermo Carlton, Pinot Noir. We'll do some Chardonnay this year. Malbec was a brand new varietal for us, came in like 2012. So we'll keep playing. Cool. For sure. Yeah.
Awesome. So is there any specific AVA that you've got your eye on that you'd like to work with perhaps one day, or a vineyard?
It really depends on what size that we can get to, because I think, especially right now, I love to follow where my team goes. And I've got a couple of people seriously interested in the Rocks region, especially stem inclusion Syrah, which is not something because we were founded because we started
the profile of what you do, but
it doesn't
make a lot of sense for the Rocks.
It does, and I think really what it comes down to, at times I've got to push back and be like, listen, guys, I can't. If I get in the truck for an extra 4.5 or 5 hours to get 2 tons out of 600 tons, it's like it's kind of it's core competency, right? I know I want to do that. I want to play. I want to learn.
But you want your sanity and you want to be stretched too thin.
Well, yeah, and we've got all this D2 that we need to make, and that's got to be the priority. If we can, when we get to that point where we're just crushing that and it's on autopilot, which it never is because we're always learning and we're always trying to get improved. try to do that. So there's definitely stuff on the hit list, and it's just more a matter of when and if we can get to it. We have a couple of stories like that. I mean, I reached out to De Brule Vineyard. Took me almost 5 years to get Merlot from them.
Cool.
I was originally wanting to get into Stone Tree. I mean, Ted watches this, he'll remember. It took almost 6 years to get into Stone Tree. I asked him every single year. The first block we got was like, it was less than a fermenter. It was completely impractical of Mourvèdre. I had no interest at the time. I didn't ask for Mourvèdre. It was just what came available. I took that, showed that I was a good client. I'm out there all the time. And now we buy a whole bunch of fruit from him. So a lot of times, anything I may have in my mind may take a decade. So it'll just keep working.
Cool. Awesome.
I don't think we're missing anything. There's definitely times where it's like, I look at it, it's like, we're going all the way down to Oregon for like 4 tons of Pinot, just because we all like that holy grail of grapes. We all like to give it a try. So
For sure. Yeah, no, I would agree. I don't think the lineup is in the range is really missing anything.
It's a little too diverse. I mean, we make 20 wines, so
it's a lot, but there are still producers that make far more than.
I guess true. Yeah.
It's good to have interest into kind of everything and see what's going on. But I tell you what, I would be first in line to check out a Rocks stem inclusion Syrah from you if you ever make it. So
yeah,
keep that in mind.
One of these days. Yeah.
Awesome. So what do you ultimately hope to achieve over your career? I mean, it seems like you've slowly been progressing, and you have a very good understanding of what Washington offers. You're starting to now, look outside the box, kind of peek into Oregon a touch. Is there something that you hope to achieve over your career that you have your sights on that is like long-term big goals?
That's a really hard question, because I think I honestly prefer to be humble. So this is difficult for me to say, but like I entered it just being like, I want to learn how to make wine. And then once I learned how to make wine, I wanted to make world-class wine. And now I've been making world-class wine for a really long time, 15 plus years, like top of 90 plus points and everything. I love the team building that I've done around me, and the culture, and everyone that I work with, from our accountants to everyone in our tasting room. Purchasing acreage for this project is something that's high on my mind, just to secure the future. At this point, I would love if the rest of my career in Washington is protecting old vines, because I'm going to say it out loud because I'm near wood. We've had this sort of phylloxera scare.
Yeah.
I bring up the Riesling because they're going to tear that block out. There's one chance to make 1972 planting Riesling. This is it. I can do it this year. I'm genuinely hoping that my career is protecting those vines. We had dirtier material back then. We may need to replant the historical Harrison Hill vineyard at some point because it has leaf roll in it. I'm just hoping that for as long as I can, I get to work with vines that are older than myself. So that's high on my list. It's probably pretty impractical. But I don't know, that, like I said, brand building. I love the fact that, especially in the middle of all this, that there's all these families that I can help take care of their family by the work that I do. That has become definitely the focal point for me, just to think that we've kept the lights on when we couldn't see customers. Yeah. Right? That's an amazing thing, and a testament to how much hard work that everyone here has put in. So I don't know. There's not a lot of things I feel like I haven't done, and I think you got to get to this point in your career and your life, and it's like trying to set new goals is difficult sometimes.
Gotcha. So talking about the vineyard, Harrison Hill there, with leaf roll. I've seen different vineyards around the globe that have been affected by some disease or one another, whether it's leaf roll or red blotch, that have continued to make really high quality wine. But I think it's because of the mechanics of what the virus is actually doing to the plant, especially in warmer regions where you have a lot of sunlight. The leaf roll will actually start to make the leaf roll, so it affects the photosynthesis effects for the plant. So it actually starts to kind of slow things down,
Yeah.
which is actually kind of a smart thing if you think about it. If you're in a very warm place, if you have a mechanism to slow down the ripening of the grapes, that could prove beneficial. The counterpoint to that is you still have diseased vines, and they're going to have to come out eventually. Is that something that that you've been seeing more and more of? Diseased vines and vine pressure happening more and more for Washington State?
I would say more and more of. The example I'll give is the Terlato Wine Group purchased Clipson a couple of years ago, and they have a more, I would say, modern or more Californian approach, and they'll eventually replant them. They have a replant schedule. So that entire original vineyard, which has been in the ground for a significant period of time, will eventually be, picked clones on rootstock with just kind of modernizing the whole setup. So I think that's perfectly common when you care about economics. So where I've seen this, the spots that I'm most concerned about is at Harrison Hill, the leaf roll is moving into the newer plantings. So eventually we're going to get to the point where the vine is so old it doesn't want to set a lot of fruit, and there's so much leaf roll that it can't even ripen that small amount of fruit. So at a certain point at a certain point it won't make sense. And at Red Willow last year, the Sours made the decision to pull out some 85 cab, which I just loved, but it was the same thing. It had some diseased material in it. And last year it got so cold that it had no chance of getting there. I was happy to have the fruit for the last time. I don't mind a little bit of pyrazine, and we can work with it because we blend everything. So there's a certain point where it gets to that point where you can't make any money on it. And, it tugs at your heart, but that's not sustainable either. So, if you're trying to take care, pet projects are great, but taking care of people is more important, and it's ultimately not sustainable if you can't get any wine out of it. So,
this is a thought that I had the other night as I was laying in bed, dozing off, falling asleep. Is there's a program in South Africa called the Old Vine Project, and they're basically trying to protect all their old vines. Why? Well, because they're very well established. They're old, but there's something that old vines do. Like they're rustic. They've struggled. They're kind of gnarly. They kick off less fruit, so a lot more concentration, a lot more complexity. That the natural progression of old vines is essentially doing the same types and giving the same effects of some of these diseased vines. And as I was thinking about this, I was like, well, yes, you'll ultimately end up having to pull these vines up regardless. The challenge becomes, how long do you wait until it's affected? And does your replanting regimen match the rate that you'll have to pull it up? Because you'll still have to wait, your second, third, sometimes fourth leaf to get receive a crop, vintage from it. I was thinking about all these, old vines, 100 plus years old in South Africa. I'm like, yeah, we got it. And then they got to be pulled up. And then, 5 years later, the very first crop, they're like, this doesn't say, that's the same vineyard, but the vines, they're different. They're youthful, they're far younger. It just started, I just started thinking about, all the mechanics of what's actually happening to the vine can be kind of routed in a way by disease pressure to almost mimic that of like old vine, but still different.
The thing I love about is whenever we're talking about wine, the Christians picked wine as a symbol for a reason, because you have vines that old and you make wine from them for 100 years. The vine's evolving, but the humans are learning what to do as well. Yeah. And I love that concept that it's just like, it's fully human and it's fully nature. It's, you got more chances to learn. You're going to hopefully do better if you're paying attention to what you do.
For sure.
But that's an interesting thought though, because some of the things that, but I think Doug Frost just bought a vineyard specifically aimed at, concern about climate change.
Yeah. I'm
going to be really interested to watch what Ben Smith of Cadence, what his vineyard does on Red Mountain, because he's actually planted between, like in the rows. Mm-hmm. And he's going to have some, it's going to be a heck of a transition. Just like, what equipment do you get in there? How do you water really young vines and plenty of old vines? But I'm really interested to see. I love his wines. I love his approach to winemaking. So I stop there every time I'm on Red Mountain. Sorry, Ben, if you didn't know. I just look. But, because I'm really curious to see what how we react to climate change and everything we learn about viticulture along the way.
Cool. Yeah, it's interesting. It's always fun walking through vineyards, trying to see, especially through Red Mountain, because there's a clear difference as you walk through the vineyards. You can see the soil. Some will be like fine, powdery, that just looks like moon dust. It goes everywhere. And some are slightly kind of rocky. Some are kind of more clay. It's really interesting. And the last year when you and I walked through the vineyards, no matter what you're doing, if you've just polish your shoes, it's your pants, your shoes, it's super dusty, and it's a really unique place. I still don't think that it should be called a mountain, because
it's not.
Every drive up there, like
it's a bluff. It's a
bless your heart.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I do believe that one day for Red Mountain, it would basically break down into minutia, but I think it would make sense for Red Mountain to break down into sub-AVAs, because you can actually tell the difference between the west-facing slope of the side, or for this vineyard, or now they're planting on the backside. It's just like there's a lot of interesting things happening there on Red Mountain.
Well, that walk that we took. You go from the sandy sand of pockets in Grand Seal, and managed by Dick Boucher, who tends to let things flop a little bit and look very natural and organic. You walk through Galitzine, which is very vertical and manicured, and then you get into Seal, which is very different soils, but also higher vigor, watered more. With everything that they've been doing forever, I think that's maybe the challenge. I definitely look at it and see, okay, you've got all these different streaks and soil depths and everything. There's definitely pockets that are very separate, distinct, but a 1976 planting, at Seal de Cheval is going to be incredibly different than modern trellising on that, the Northwest where Marshall's and Dick Shaw have a lot of stuff. So, that by itself is almost sometimes hard to compare, but also super fun. I think that's what makes it great. And you're picking Cabernet within 10 days of one another. That's just like wildly different. Yeah. That's fun. Let's let the vineyard express itself. Like I said, that's the goal there. Sure. And see what happens out of it. I think we would challenge on that. Not to get too much into the not as romantic stuff, but I think Red Mountain itself is just as small as it is, as the world still has a lot to learn about how good Washington is. Yeah, like it's making it a little bit more difficult.
But I think it would be a really interesting thing to see.
100%. I'm with you.
Into different sub-AVAs. So you're currently in the new tasting room in Woodinville. It opened up a little over a year ago. I hope you and the team and everyone is doing well. I've been seeing that the Washington date night, the pickup, you guys have had a thing going for Drink for Washington, where you were selling meals to go with bottles of wine. I think it's a very clever idea to try and stay active and keep busy. How are you and your team doing during this challenging year?
I think we did better than expected. Think about all the things. Every brand is very different in all this, right? If we sold all of our wine in supermarkets, it would be relatively unaffected, maybe even doing well. Mm-hmm. But I keep saying that the foundation, again, is what has made us have the success that we have. We have a wonderful wine club following. We have an incredibly strong direct-to-consumer team here in the tasting room that have the desire and the push to service the customers that want to come. We had built a full kitchen here. We want to be able to do events in this space. So we work very intimately with our partner chef. And he's a catering chef. I've known him for a really long time. Our families are really close. And he was like, hey, I need an outlet too. And it was a no-brainer to be able to provide something to our wine club members, some normalcy, to give to give Chef Tony a chance to do what he does really well. He loves our wines. He knows how to pair them. It was a very super no-brainer. Those early months when like that was all we were allowed to do, it anchored us for sure. And I'm excited. Eventually we'll get this place full up again. It's heartbreaking to be here on a beautiful day and there's no one to enjoy it, but it's temporary, right? So
for sure. So what do you think is next for Delille? Where do you see it progressing?
I sorry, I had a phone. Somebody tried to call me in the middle there. So I don't know. I think we're trying to figure it out. I think I know we're trying to get very strategic about where we go. I think once we know we're hoping to find the limitations of what this beautiful space will be. I think we're one of the few places in Woodinville right now that is so focused on having a reservation system so that we can deliver the experience that we want to showcase these wines, to educate people about Washington, and ultimately to sign up wine club members. Like, this is a space that we built for our wine club, and our wine club is actually continuing to grow despite it being 2020. So that's letting us know that we're on the right path. And I think that will help kind of set the stage for where we end up going. We start to stabilize, see how many people we can actually get here, how many wine club members we can have, how full we'll be. That go to the other question, like, is there an AVA or something that we want to do? Like, once I know how many wine club members we have, like that sort of helps. So, we had just gotten to the point where production had plateaued, and now we have the space to sell it, and then you get hit in the face with reality and stuff that you don't control. So, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of sitting and waiting. I like to keep moving. I feel uncomfortable if you're standing still, but it's hard to say. We'll continue to make the best wine that we can, and I welcome people back into this space. So in the meantime, our website, we had overhauled it about 12 months before any of this happened. So now we've been really lucky that a really robust e-commerce platform that can help people find wine and buy wine and have it shipped to them easily. It's that's the stuff that's kept us busy, the stuff that keeps us busy as we fine tune, and we'll go from there. I don't know.
It's crazy. Yeah, for Delille to have more wine club members during a year like COVID, and that speaks volumes. So you're clearly on the right track. Most businesses are down, where you seem to already be the other direction. You're already inclining, which is great. I see a lot of great things coming for you. These wines are great.
Thank you.
I know the very first time, I don't know if you remember this, but the very first time we met was back in 15.
I was trying to remember what road trip it was.
Yeah, it was 15, and you'd come out. It looks like you had been working out or something. You had like earphones in or earbuds in. You were sweating, and we were there early in the morning, and we did some exercises with punch downs for some Grenache that had just come in. And having been to the site, been to the winery, the wines have always shown very, very well over the decades that I've been very familiar with them. Again, as I said, they've always been on my wine list that I would curate over the years.
Thank you.
That is one of those staples of Washington wine that you can always bet on. They're solid wines, and they're great.
Thank you. Yeah, I know I was sweaty. I one of the few things for me that I will continue to struggle to let go of, and is morning punch downs. Yeah. So especially this time of year, my brain's going a mile a minute. So I come in early because I'm awake anyway. I never spent any time in the restaurant industry, so early morning is available to me. I also like it because there's nobody else around, so I kind of work myself through the challenges of the day, get my mind right, all that. Also, if I can get all that done before people get in, I make it easier. So in some ways, I'm kind of stealing the experience, I would say. But that very visceral, the feedback you get when you hand punch down, to be able to smell it, to know how the temperature is changing, what it felt like from the day before. I thrive on it. Yeah. And nowadays I fight with our winemaker over it. it's like an arms race for who will be in first. But yeah, it's just we hand make wine here the same way that we did 30 years ago when we made 1,000 cases. We hand make wine the same way at 30,000 cases. That's just we never intended to do it any other way. I don't know how else to do it. So
yeah. That's very admirable that you still do it by hand. There's plenty of technology to make things easier for yourself. But
yeah.
I completely understand. I drive. I ride a motorcycle, and when I would leave the restaurant at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, just being on the motorcycle driving home, I would drive by the random grocery store or bakery, and you could smell the donuts and bread being made. There's something to be said about the experience that you get by just doing it yourself. Once you let the machinery, take care of stuff, there's an aspect that I feel, there's, I don't know, it's like baking bread or something. You know exactly what's happening. You know what it looks like, what it smells like, how it feels, and when it's ready. And then as you keep just kneading and thawing and roping, stretching, you know exactly when it's ready. And with modern machinery, you tend to lack that ability when doing everything by hand. And punch downs, if anyone's never done them before, it is hard work. If you get the cap up and hot, it's like a cinder block. You got to really jam it down there. It's a good workout. I'll tell you what. It is 51 after. I know you're a very busy guy, and with the very last of the Sauvignon Blanc coming in, you being all sticky, and I'm sure you need to get back to the grapes and check on them before it is time for you to clock out for the day. We won't keep them much longer. Thank you so much for joining me. Really great to have you on. Great to chat with you. Great to see you. Hope you're doing well. Do you have any last parting thoughts you'd like to get out before we return?
First of all, thanks for having us. I mean, I think I've seen who else you've interviewed from Washington State. We're just here at Delille. We kind of do what we do really well, and we love when people appreciate it. It's always good to see you. It's kind of crazy to think it's been a year since we've been able to kick dirt together, but and really get into the nitty gritty of winemaking. But I say to everybody joining, we have like I said, we have a beautiful website. It's DelilleCellars.com. We have a you can sign up for the wine club there to see what some of the things that we're talking about, whether it's Chardonnay, Pinot Noir. We launched a Malbec driven wine, do a late harvest. We make 20 wines. It's diverse. We put our heart and soul into it. Hope you love it. And then, thanks for having us.
Cool, man. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining. It's been a pleasure. For those of you checking us out next week, keep it locked here. Wednesday, 1 p.m. We continue the chats. I will have on Trey Bush of Sleight of Hand Cellars from Walla Walla. Super good guy, and he's real. He likes some interesting music. Huge fan of the Seattle scene. But until then, stay safe, drink well, and be kind to others.
Cheers.